The second norm I plan to model for my students is I can show empathy for my peers by not touching them. This is a big problem in my class. I have kids touching each other all the time. Kids will come by and hit their friends, or they'll just, I don't know, touch other people's shoulders, all sorts of things. And I always make sure that this is on the list every year. In the past, it's been I can show respect for my peers by not touching them. But I think empathy is a good way to talk about this because, as I always say to them, the modeling that I have done is talking about this at length with students in the past. And I say, look, I'm not a detective. I can't decide whether or not you're goofing around and touching each other is wanted or unwanted. And I am just going to assume that it's all unwanted because, frankly, that's what you want. Because, and this is where empathy comes in, I want to tell the students, think about it. We've all been, or at least most of us have been in situations where someone has come up and touched us, and we're like, what is going on? Who is this person, and why are they touching me? And there's other situations where obviously it's your friends and you're having fun, but those lines can get blurred, and it can depend on the day and it can depend on a lot of things. And if we're being empathetic towards each other, we should never want to put one of our peers into that situation where they feel uncomfortable or they feel like that they're now going to need to either speak up and put their friend on the spot or put their peer on the spot and say, hey, you know what, stop doing that. Or what usually happens is sit there in silence, just letting it happen, feeling uncomfortable. And in the past, I've talked about that. And I usually will pick on a couple random students and say, look, Steve's sitting here, and Tom comes up to Steve and brushes the back of his head with his hand, and I look over as a teacher and see that happen and say, what are you guys doing? Tom, don't touch Steve. That's not okay. And Tom immediately blurts out, and it's like, no, 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 we're friends. It's okay. We do this kind of thing all the time. And now Steve is in a tough situation because unless that's true, Steve is sitting there thinking, I don't want that to happen. I don't want him to touch my head again, but I'm not going to say anything. And so I always say he's just going to sit there quietly, uncomfortable for the rest of the class, wishing that somebody would make this stop. And when I was thinking about modeling this further, I thought it could be kind of fun for me and for the kids to to keep that goofy tone and get like one of the little drawing mannequins that we have, and I'll say, okay, this mannequin, this is Steve, and I am the student, and then I'll get one of the other students in the classroom to take my role as the teacher, and we'll just go through the steps of how these things escalate, right? So at first I'll be over there poking the mannequin, and the student who's the teacher can come by and give me my warning, tell me to stop. We don't touch other people in this class. And then I'll just keep doing it, and then that student can model for everybody else, taking me out of the situation and separating me from the mannequin. And I'll have rehearsed this with them before, and I'll show them first, and I'll ask somebody to take on my role. And then once I've been separated, I'll like come by and then be goofy, and as I walk by the mannequin, poke it again. Um, and then that student can model taking me aside and saying, hey, we're gonna have to send a letter home, or have a phone call home to your mom because it's not okay for us to be touching each other in class. So I'm hoping that kind of my old approach adding with this new approach of like physically modeling it instead of just modeling it through conversation will really drive home the importance of this rule.